All right, welcome back. This is Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV television and radio in Freetown, Sierra Leone.
Right, coming up in the program today, we shall be discussing the 2026 MCC Scorecard. It's a critical tool used to determine government eligibility for the multi-million-dollar compact. And this year's scorecard reveals that Sierra Leone passed only 9 out of the 20 indicators. Now, a performance that placed the country well below the typical threshold for selection. We shall be talking on that.
And also in today's conversation, a new dawn for communications and peer practice in Sierra Leone begins as Sierra Leone Association of Communications and Public Relations Professional has been launched. We will be discussing the plans of the association.
Yes, we shall be discussing all of that. And you're still watching Wake Up Sierra Leone on AYV television on channel 33. As always, we're on Facebook, AYV News, and also on radio on FM 101.7. Now, in our fourth segment, Sierra Leone's ambition to secure a second major grant from the United States Millennium Challenge Cooperation MCC has suffered a significant setback, with the newly released 2026 scorecard showing a sharp decline in the nation's performance on key democratic and economic indicators. The MCC scorecard, a critical tool used to determine a country's eligibility for the multi-million-dollar compact, reveals that Sierra Leone passed only 9 out of 20 indicators, a performance that placed it well below the typical threshold for selection. Now, the MCC scorecard analysis, which evaluates the country's commitment to ruling justly, investing in people and economic freedom, showed that Sierra Leone passed 2 of the 3 mandatory hard hurdles, control of corruption and personal freedom, but ultimately failed the overall performance due to poor results in economic indicators under the economic freedom. Sierra Leone performed strongly in women in the economy with 95% and employment opportunity at 82%. But struggle in areas such as access to credit, which is at 11%, business startup at 28%, and trade policy at 50%. The report also noted challenges with inflation, which is at 28.4%, and regulatory quality at 38%. Now, in the investing people category, Sierra Leone recorded a mixed performance, scoring high in primary education, completion rate of 97%, and health expenditures 64%, but falling short in child health at 18% and natural resources protection at 31%. Despite the overall failure to meet the majority of MCC benchmark, the report suggests some progress in governance, transparency, and anti-corruption measures. However, it highlights the urgent need for policy reform in economic management, human capital investment, and institutional effectiveness to improve Sierra Leone's standing in future assessment. Now, to discuss all this and more in the program this morning, we have been joined by the country's Minister of Information and Civic Education, Chernoba, and Honorable Abdul Karim Kamara, the whip of the opposition in Parliament. Good morning, gentlemen. Good morning and welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Mr. Minister, let's start off with you. What does this scorecard mean for the government?
I hate to do this. The majority of what you just said is factually inaccurate. It is not true that we performed worse on any indicator than we did last year. Your opening segment just told the public that on things that we used to perform well on, that we reversed progress.
And it is a failure.
It's not true, sir. It is objectively false.
But it is a failure.
I hate to come on air and have to challenge you on your own program.
But it is a failure, Mr. Minister. A failure is a failure. You can't sugarcoat it.
You know what I don't do is to engage in these big words that you are using. It's a failure, it's a passing. MCC scorecard has a number of indicators, sir. There are a number of indicators on the MCC scorecard. There are 22 indicators this year versus last year when there were 20. I want us to be clear with the public. It is indeed true that this year, of the 22, and that's why you said one thing that was true. Mm-hmm. There are 3 categories that they look at. Personal freedom, control of corruption and accountability, and then they want you to overall pass half of the scorecard. If the scorecard this year was exactly the same as it was last year, Sierra Leone will have passed. True. Until 2 weeks ago, we did not know what the new scorecard will become. Nobody knew. Until two weeks ago. And then they came forward, the MCC, and said, because of the priorities of the new government, they have added additional indicators, and the scorecard has changed. In that new scorecard, we passed in 9, and I have had a number of journalists, reputable journalists, saying we failed in 13. That's also factually false. You cannot fail in something that you don't have a grade in. There's one of the indicators where Sierra Leone was not graded because even the MCC did not have data for. So it's important that, yes, on economic indicators, which they have prioritized and have added 2 additional hurdles around, the country has not met these indicators. They are the first time they have been introduced. But what is clear and what you look at is not station, it's trajectory. Usa you dey, Usa you dey go. On every single one of the indicators, our country it has either maintained or has continued to progress. Nothing other will be past par will fail this time. The reason why we got the $480 million compact, which you did not mention, which I think will have been important to calm the nerves of the public, to say that, number one, the first headline is Sierra Leone's $480 million compact is intact and it's continuing. That's number one. That's the headline. No problem with that. Number two, in this year's scorecard, they have introduced additional measures. And by those measures, this year, our country has not met the 50% threshold that they have set with the expanded scorecard. But again, it is important, and this is why I say I hate to do this. The government has already put our hand up and said, we welcome these new measures. We look forward to comparing ourselves against the benchmark they have set, and we hope that we'll work together with everybody, including the opposition, for us to meet these. Because when we passed as a country, when we failed in 2017, which was our worst year in the MCC history, it was our worst year when we failed, it's the country that failed. On all of these measures, for example, one of the areas where we have excelled is freedom of information. It's not because I'm the information minister, it's because of you. It's because of AYV. It's because of the opposition. It's because as a country, we have decided that on this issue of freedom of information, we're going to prioritize no journalists in jail. We have repealed criminal libel. We have a fantastic freedom of information legislation and a regime that is dedicated to promoting that. We have 95%. So yes, the picture is mixed this year, but the headline that we have faltered on areas that we used to progress on is simply not true.
Right. You mentioned 2017. Let's look at a quick fact check with regards to the 2017 figure. Now, the contemporary local reporting confirmed 2017 was one of Sierra Leone's weakest MCC year. The country failed 14 out of the 20 indicators. Let's say we remove those 2 indicators introduced. Did this government perform more than the 2017 government?
My brother. 2017, we did not get MCC. The only time we started qualifying for MCC compact and passing was under this government.
No, I'm not talking about the money. I'm talking about the scorecard 2017.
The scorecard is to get compact. So compared with 2017, the result is so clear, it's so crystal, it will be a waste of my time. It's so crystal clear between 2017 and now. We have, for example, on the critical issue of control of corruption, at 2017, we had failed. We had 40%.
Obviously.
Since President Bio came to power, we have been over 70%, consistently. That's a critical issue that the MCC looks at. In fact, they pull and separate and put in a kakama. You need to perform on that one. We have performed on that one. Investing in people, education, girls' primary enrollment, some of the things you mentioned. So yes, again, it is not a question of APC versus SLPP. This is about Sierra Leone. As a country, we did not pass in 2017. Now, we're doing much better. Until this year, again, I said, look at not station, look at trajectory. Not so like we get people who they look at the results, say, oh, this is the green Demboku, the red Demboku. That's not how we should look at it. We should look at it as, Usa will be there. Are we doing better now than we did last year? Are we getting worse? And the objective fact, I tell you, sir, is that we have not gotten worse than we were last year.
So in your opinion, this year is an upgrade to last year?
Not with the new indicators. They have added new indicators, which have made the picture a little bit more complex, which have given us a rather weaker outlook. But including, again, workforce development, score, not available. So there are measures, because it is a new set of indicators that they have introduced, there are measures for which they don't even have data. So you have to allow this to happen a couple of years and see our performance before you can have an authoritative judgment that, imagine, you can't, say, today we reach here, we'll get for judge you on the susu you wear. They will reach now after the school done, after the exam done, we come for the exam, they will say, no, this exam here today, will not be no that glasses we wear, so if you don't be tinted, so we will fail you for that. But what I want people to pay attention to is, USA will be there last year, will not go back. We continue to pass on the measures that we have been passing. We are building on that, and yes, on the economy, things are not sprightly, but the government will continue to work on it.
Let's usher in Honorable Abdulkarim. I see you've been smiling whilst the minister was making his submission. How does the opposition interpret all of this?
Firstly, I think we need to lay certain facts bare. You know, we've kept the people off the historic background of how we get into the MCC and where we are today. So when it sounds like, oh, we've passed, we've reached this level, it's like you meeting your father building a house and he has done the foundation and he has done the first concreting, you're just putting up part of the structure, and you want to erode the effort of the father in building the foundation. The MCC does not start at compact, no. It started with first you passing certain threshold. And in 2014, Sierra Leone reached that mark. And monies were disbursed to Sierra Leone that were partly implemented by the APC government and the SRPP government. It were those thresholds that we passed that determined the next step of us reaching the compact. So we should not rewrite the history of the MCC, making it as if it's just this government that has ever stepped into the MCC. You said 2017 is the worst year, but before 2017, we entered the entire journey of the MCC in 2014. And from 2014 to 2018, we only had bad results in 2017. We failed, was it 13? Which is almost the same with this year again, we failed 13
we
areas.
did not fail 13. You cannot fail when you don't have a grade. Let us be factual to the public. You did not fail 13. You know I have a lot of respect for you.
Can we have
12.
No.
On one, there was no score.
You have time to correct it. You have the whole of time.
Go ahead, I apologize.
Let's not have a banter on this. Yeah, we all 13 and 12. It's the truth is, I want to be civil on this, and I want us Sierra Leoneans to have a clear education on this. The MCC is not for SRPP. The MCC is not what APC wants government to fail. Because when you look at the MCC, what it addresses are critical issues affecting our people. I've said recently in Parliament, when there is no water, when there is no electricity, when we have bad roads, when we have bad medical situations, everybody feels it. And when you have either you pass the threshold and money being given, you pass the compact, money is being given, those monies are not being given for government to put into their pockets. It addresses significant issues of the country. That is why we believe, as an opposition, we bring out certain things. For some of us, we are not shocked by the results, because when you talk about the economy, for example, almost everything that is being mentioned in the economy are things we've talked about over and over again in the last 2-3 years. Yeah? Say, for example, I'll give you just basic examples on this, and fiscal discipline when it comes to the disbursement. We've seen a pattern in which certain sector overspends the budget when certain sectors do not have budgetary allocations at all. Say, for example, go to local government this year. The entire local government administration, non-council has received grants. Whilst other sectors of the government are now, they've not just received their allocation, they are now, the allocation have been added to those sectors.
You're trying to say that the MCC result does not represent or reflect the country's governance and economic?
No, I am saying we are not shocked. This is, when it comes to the economy, all the results that have been put out, either by the MCC, World Bank, BAN, these are things we've said long before now. You come to financial discipline in terms of allocations to ministry, in terms of overspending by certain ministry, which they call budgetary overrun, as World Bank stated, in terms of inflation. We've said, truth to be told is, if we're in double digits, ranking to 30%, let's know this is where we are. And as a country, we come together and know where the problem is. In terms of our economic indicators where we fail to raise resources, we've said, come back to this. We are in parliament. We see how we give contracts to people.
Who do you think is primarily responsible for that in terms of the failure, in terms of our economic indicators?
Well, it's a kind of a mixed bag, yeah? Truth to be told is we've not been too disciplined as a country when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the way we disburse money, when it comes to, again, I have said this over and over again. Most times when you talk about corruption, misuse of state resources, this is not just done by politicians. But what we've done over time is we've allowed ourselves as politicians to take the bullet for the civil servants who actually implement the day-to-day activities of the ministry. It's not the minister who disburses money in his ministry. No. He goes to programs. He ensures he monitors the use of money. But when it comes to the audit report, year in, year out, the expenditures of government are clearly stated in the audit report. And therefore, when you see some of the way monies are being spent and you raise some of these issues, you understand where we are when it comes to financial discipline. So in the area of the economy, the reports of all three reports I have stated are almost seemingly the same. And it means this is a call for government. When you talk about education, normally in our education system, we don't have problem with the primary sector. Hardly you see people dropping out in the primary sector. We most times have issues with when you move to the secondary, and that have been addressed again by the legislations we've passed as a government. But we still have turning issues when it comes to the education. And I have said this, and I'll continue to say it. The pronouncement of the president to have a free quality education is a right step we needed as a country. Nobody will play politics with this, and this is the truth. But the truth is the implementation and the funding opportunities is what we question. You want to come in?
Yes, go ahead. No, I wanted to ask, I mean, does this result signal a failure to the economic leadership?
Of course. There's no way to say it. Well, let me use the word of the minister. We've not passed.
Exactly.
We do not fail as a country because it's difficult to say we failed, but we've not passed in that area. So it means, as a nation, for me, it's not time to celebrate, oh, the SLP has failed, because the nation has failed.
Absolutely. Because
having the MCC at a time like this when we want to expand electricity, it means it will have given us a huge leap in the right direction. But now that we've not passed, now that we've not reached the threshold, what we need to do as a nation is to come back and ask ourselves the critical questions. Where do we enforce discipline? Where do we come to the table and say, can we look at some of the recommendations proffered by state institutions, local institutions, and see how best we address the issue when it comes to the economy? That's what I would say. When it comes to education, like other ministry, in figures and in numbers, the allocation to the education sector by 22% is a laudable one. But the reality is allocations are not being given. So what we need to do is just have a realistic budget that speaks to the specifics when it comes to the allocations given to ministries. How do you have 22% of the budget, yet still you struggle to pay school subsidies? How do you have 22% of the budget, yet still you struggle with teachers' enrollment? As we speak, We have almost 78,000 teachers on the in schools. Only 34 are on payroll. It means the bulk population of teachers are not on payroll. This do not assure quality education. No, it is not. We have areas where we still don't have, where kids walk 5 to 6 miles accessing schools. This is not assuring quality. As we speak, I have said this again, and I'm going to champion this campaign. Of late, I have just learned that parents are contributing money for school feeding programs. This is not the way to go. And when you check, interestingly, what these parents pay.
As per your findings, would you maybe want to highlight some of the specific schools that, you know, they were doing? I mean, as a way to help solve, you know, some of these problems.
Okay. What I do normally is I interact greatly with schools. Yeah. And this is where it's not a secret. Check most of the schools in the provinces where they do school feeding. They call the parents to meeting. The parents come to the meeting. They agree to pay a certain number because not all the condiments.
It's good that we have the minister.
Not all the condiments are being given to the schools. So the other condiments are expected to be facilitated by the parents. So you still say the parents should pay. And what the parents are paying to supplement the school feeding program in these schools is more than what government is paying as school subsidies for the kids in the same school. So our problem is, critically, as a nation, I would say we need to look at where we've not passed. And even those indicators we've passed, collectively we look at them and we allow positive criticisms. We don't look at what people say from a color lens, because I will repeat again to say, it is not the SLPP that has failed in this year's MCC. It is Sierra Leone, and in a bigger spectrum, I would say, we've gone back, a step back in achieving the compact, which is very, very important for nation building, which is very, very much important in addressing the issues that affect the nation.
So it's impossible for you to name some of the schools that, you know...
no, I cannot, because I am still on it.
But how do we solve some of these problems?
No, well, you don't solve the problem when...
You expose them?
No, you don't solve the problem when you're not... Because these are just few schools I have talked to in Cambia. I am yet to have a kind of...
At least we were having
Honorable,
a clue now.
does the opposition have the answers to some of these questions?
You mean the area of
economy,
the economy,
yes.
The area of the indicators?
We didn't fail, but we didn't try. Does the opposition have?
You know, some of the issues are old age problems. We must allude to this, and we can solve them. We have solutions to them, and we've passed in some of these indicators long before now. And we are sure, as a nation, we can do better. Again, I deliberately don't want to take this discussion this morning political. I'll tell you, because I am not a happy man that we've not been able to make progress in the compact. Because for me, I want to, this issue of electricity that is going to be addressed by the money that is going to come is one I want to happen today. Because being a politician does not mean you are not a Sierra Leonean. I am a Sierra Leonean. Even in my red, I am still a Sierra Leonean. So the situation where I agree to what the minister said, we have not failed, but we have not passed.
Mr. Minister, a quick response before I ask my question.
I just want to clarify for the public, since people are listening. I want to allay the fears of the minister, of the honorable. He cares about the MCC $480 million investment in the electricity. It has nothing to do with this year's results, sir. Okay. That money is on its way. The process is ongoing. This not going to affect this at all. I want you to be rest assured that the scorecard is for eligibility, as you said in your introduction, for another compact. And even if you pass, does not mean that you get them. It means you are in the discussion. Okay, and even if, for example, because these are new indicators, what they have clearly said to us is we're still in the conversation. That is why in 2040 we will not be passed, or the year the day, we still were in the, yes, we were 17, I mean, but we were still in the conversation. So you can still be in the conversation. And what this shows, again, if you just take a look at the compact, right? It was 20 indicators last year. There are 22 now. Take number one under the economic freedom is inflation. You and I know that for a long time we've had runaway inflation. But the current numbers are not what it is today. Inflation has moved from 55% to in less than single digits. So we expect reasonably that the next time this is done, our country will have improved significantly on this one. So this is why I said, let's don't just say, then pass 1139 for the area mandate, and then it's say, oh, we pass 13, we pass 15. Let's go through and look at the indicators. Another one, for example, that we have not done well on is property and land rights. We have continued, the land tenure system in this country is not tied to one political party. It's problematic, especially when you get outside of the capital. It's difficult, our traditional leaders, who owns land, access to private land. These are the things that they measure. But we are continuing to make a lot of reforms, including some that are led by Parliament, with the new laws that they have passed. And we expect that once these kick in and implementations kick in, our scores will continue to improve on these areas. So what I want people to pay attention, that's why I said, don't judge station. Don't judge me day. Where am I headed with man call and trajectory? When you look at the trajectory of where we are as a country, from where we were 2017 to USA today, nobody can look at this scores and say the country don't go beyond. It is not true. And again, it is important. This is why you see, who starts, I mean, the child small. I say it's important at the top. Let me clarify to the people, because people they worry about this. MCC would not depart this conversation. When I became minister, the first 2 years, all the interviews now be MCC. MCC they carry again, they don't take the money, they don't take it. So once you tell people that we don't fail, then if you say they don't pull the money in our hand. That's why the release we put out, the first thing we said is the money is intact. That's compact, we don't pass some door. That in our implementation we did now. What we're trying to do is to remain compact eligible so we can apply for even additional resources. This is where we have the setback for this year. But honorable members of the public, the $480 million compact for the investments in our electricity infrastructure in Sierra Leone is intact and it's ongoing.
Are we going to have a government published internal review of the MCC scorecard?
No, what you have is our commitment, which we have already said. Our commitment is that, look, we welcome these new measures. The point of these things, even the MCC, it's not like, not to say American will teach and then they can't judge we. The point is, they want to measure how, it's public money. And the MCC program is regarded as the best external investments by the US because it is based on quantitative empirical evidence. Then they just give the money, not to buy sorry ads. Now, based on, you need to not meet certain threshold. You need to have passed on things, you need to have. So it's good for you. So even if we were not in the MCC program, it's important to look at our performance on these indicators so that we can compare ourselves, not just with ourselves, but with other countries on how we're doing. For example, on business competitiveness. President Bio is really obsessed with creates a startup culture. Yeah, there's now an introduction of a startup culture thing, right? We're opening Felicity, is not yet ready. So we're beginning to lay the foundation, but these are historical problems. These are structural, historical, systemic problems that the country has had and that we're going to have to solve together. But it is a reflection of the growth, of the changing nature of the world, right? The world economy has changed. Now people are looking at startup culture. What are you doing for tech cities? What are you doing for innovations? So the measures by which we were judged in the past are different. So we welcome that. We welcome our baseline score. And as I said, even on the area of inflation, I know, you and I know, that if a scorecard is released for next year, inflation is not going to be the same as it is today. Because we know that we are continuing to make significant progress on the area of inflation.
Honorable Minister, let me come in a bit. You've been talking about us not meeting this threshold. But what factors that may have led to the decline or for us not to?
There was no decline.
Okay.
Again, I feel like on the areas that we passed last year, we have maintained.
Okay.
They added new areas.
We are yet to.
That we have not exactly.
Okay.
So when you look, I don't know if there was a decline. Maybe, for example, if they had measured us last year in that same area, maybe Nabia will go or Nabifo will go, I don't know, right? But again, just the number one area there is inflation. And on that area, I can tell you Last year, inflation in Sierra Leone was 55%. Today, it's less than, it's in single digits. It's about 5%, the last time I checked. So you can see that we are making progress on these areas. My brother mentioned education, and I know he's an education champion. He's built schools, and he's been speaking about this area, for example. On the area of investing in education, particularly what MCC looks at is investing in girls' completion rates. It's one of our best performances as a country. We're at 97%. We're one of the best performers on earth, on all the countries that are assessed on this area. Does that mean that we should rest on ours? He's right. On education, President Bio wants it to be his signature accomplishment. He says, when I ask him, what do you want to be remembered for? Number one thing on his mind is education. And so he's right, the challenges we face. But there's one thing he mentioned, that, oh, parents are paying for school feeding. I don't think that's a problem. I think education requires civic engagement. Everybody should be part of that. Government should put in some, but in some communities, because no matter how much money we have as a government, we're going to require, agriculture is what our people do. They should come together in their communities and contribute to the school feeding program. I don't think that is prima facie a problem. Of course, if it is corrupt, if it is at the expense of, somebody they thief from waiting the picking they're supposed to forget. But school feeding, in terms of, if you look at the school feeding data, where we are, where we need to get to, what our ambitions are, our ambition is it's only by 2040 that we will get to school feeding across the country. We don't have the resources. Most countries on earth don't have the US doesn't have the resources to be able to do 100% school feeding. So we have a segmented school feeding program. And so I think if there are some communities where the people, the parents in the communities are coming together and organizing themselves and say, we want to contribute for feed, we can let them go to school, it should be a good thing, because we know the evidence on school feeding. When kids have nutrition in school, they stay in school longer, they perform better in school. It is a great thing for communities to be invested in, because it ties President Bio's two signature initiatives, which is free quality school education and the Feed Salon program. So I don't think it is, I don't think it is prima facie a bad idea that communities are investing in the school feeding program.
Does all of these factor somehow or somewhat may affect our ambition to secure a second major MCC compact?
As I've said, the way the MCC compact works, and I know that the problem is there's headline. We like headlines. We pass 9, we fail 13, we fight. It's headlines, right? But the MCC compact, it doesn't just work on that simple headline. They look at different things. We're still in the conversation, and we're an implementing country. So that already means we are on the table. We are part of this conversation, and we will continue to push. And again, they don't make decisions just on this one year. So we'll continue to push. We have additional data. We have a commitment as a country. We did not start by saying, oh, they don't like power. We accept the result. We said we're going to work hard to improve on these scores. And some of that work requires parliament. We need to pass some new laws. We need to push some implementation. We need to change the way our land system works. And we have made progress on that. We need to change those implementation. And the people that do this assessment need to see the evidence of that. But keep in mind, we started MCC conversation in 2014. We've only had one compact so far. So even if we've been past 15, I don't mean so they get the money this year. So we're implementing this. We're part of this conversation still. We're not out. They have not kicked us out. And we're still part of the process that will make sure that once there's another opportunity for another compact, Sierra Leone will be part of the conversation.
Right, before I come over to Honorable, Mr. Minister, quickly, let's look at some of these indicators. Now, natural resources protection is at 31%. Of course, women in the economy is performing very well, 95%, but business startup is at 28%.
Yes.
I would like you to look at these three indicators and whether it will affect investors' confidence or donor decision when it comes to investing in the economy, investing in business, especially the extractive sector.
It does, and you add market competitiveness to it. It's true. Because, and this is why the fact that we have received an MCC compact is a good thing for us. Because a lot of donors, they look at, if MCC don't go to that country, it means say, that country they perform reasonably well on a number of things. As I said, not to soriate money with MCC. So they know that if they don't give MCC money, the country, the donors think, that's a serious country. That's a country that's worked on some reforms. So when we come back to the scorecard, the measures that you have pointed out, where you take natural resource protection, this is not just looking at minerals or things like that. It's talking about the environment. This is new concerns about what we're doing, right? And that's why you see new concerted efforts by our government to do better on protecting the environment. We have to do better. That one is not for MCC, not for person, not for me, not for this man, not for picking them, we picking them, we all naya. If we don't protect this environment, we'll have no water, we'll have no habitat, our kids will not have a country. So that's really critical. But this kind of score forces us to take a closer look at it and say, what are the indicators by which we will be judged externally and also internally? But you mentioned two others, which is business startup. It's a big thing. It's something that, as a young person myself, I'm an entrepreneur. I've started different things in my life. I've built businesses and stuff like that. You have to have, and this ties, by the way, to the access to credit, which is one of our worst performances on this, right? The average person may access to credit. But I'll tell you what government is doing already to lay the foundation for that. The payment switch is a huge access, digitizing the banking system in this country, so that the last person, because they're looking at it not just at the macro level, but also at the micro level. The person in my village, in his village, if they want to buy something, do they have access to credit for buy solar? Will they have access? Right now, the banking system does not recognize them. They have probably no formal banking in their community and all that. But now, with mobile money, with the payment switch system, that's tying them, the making sure that you're all tied in, you can build a credit profile. It's a base system. If we had been measured by this in the past 10 years, we'll be zero, because we have not had a credit system in this country for a long time. The average person outside of the capital, in fact, now only recently would they get major bank there and some of the district headquarters town in this country. For a long time, we have our people, you know, men are full of man, and so people who don't get money, we go take and keep an house. That affects the economy, right? So you have to create confidence in people saying, oh, I go put my money in a bank. I know say when I want them, I get them. I also know say the point of the banking system too is you have access to credit. So it's a huge area. These are all, this is not a conversation, I think as we both have been reiterating about, oh, SLPP performance, APC performance. This is a conversation about Sierra Leone and the well-being of our country. And that is why we welcome these measures, because it's going to force us to accelerate the things that we've already working on. We've already been working on with Tech City, with innovation, trying to bring in new capital for young entrepreneurs, trying to think about innovation, trying to think about access to credit. You know, with the feed salon program, there's a huge access to credit program, $20 million that young farmers can apply to, and things like that, with sometimes almost zero interest rates or very limited interest rate. So that is expanding it. There's a new insurance program for farmers and all that. These are laying the foundation that will improve this score. Are they enough? It's a question of wait and see. But what this forces us to do is to say, hey, you need to do more in this area. You need to put more resources there, and that's something I know President B will do.
Honorable, members of parliament have oversight power. What oversight actions you or some of your colleagues will take in the next 12 months to pressure this government into performing when it comes to these economic indicators?
Please. One of the major hallmark of the free education is to reduce burden on parents. And when I talk about the school feeding, I'm talking about a situation in which parents are being coerced to contribute. I'm not talking about what the minister is trying to trying to paint a picture in which the parents are like willing to do it. No, this one they are being coerced to contribute. And because it is not a government directive on saying, okay, government is going to provide this. What we hear every day on the school feeding is the fact that government is feeding schools. I am only letting the public to know that part of it is government is sending certain commodities, and the school, the parents are being coerced to pay certain amount of money, which is more than what actually government is paying for school subsidies, which is 10,000 loans. Secondly, again, let me make this, you know, what I want to do today is let the minister and many other people who speak on behalf of government to know we can talk constructively on national issues without blaming a party. What he has consistently done that I will not play a blind game to is the fact that he has consistently been saying, if you go back the last 10 years, Mr. Minister, Sierra Leone, where we are currently as young people, we've been elected and we've been appointed knowing fully well that our future is in our hands. Gone are those days when people become ministers and members of parliament when they are in their future. We are now ministers and members of parliament ahead of our future. Because most times people believe, oh, well, whatever we do now, I am 60, I'm 50, so I am in my last days, as Alpha Khan will say it, of my life. No, we are at the mid-age of our lives, and whatever we do now affects us. So I want us to at least depoliticize the conversation of thinking, oh, the last 10 years. If we go down that way, it will be a very, it will not be a civil conversation.
But Honorable, if you were in that position, you would refer to the last 10 years as well.
No, why I will not go that way is because if you look at all international reports this year, all where we've been doing well in the last 10 years, now we're not doing well this year specific. So what we need to do is, I also agree with him, we have not failed, but we have not passed. At least that's the theme of this conversation. So again, where we are is, let's look at what is before us as a nation. Are we comfortable? We're talking about an inflation of a single digit, but the report is painting out an inflation of 28%. Is that reflective of what we have locally? No. We're talking about inflation last year was 55%. It was not, the inflation 55% did not start 10 years ago. It started just within this regime, but I don't want to go down that way. What we have before us in all of the reports is a call for more robust actions by government, by citizens and state players.
And by extension, members of the
Come now to
opposition.
your question. What, first of all, some of us have called for is you don't do oversight 4 days, 5 days, 6 days a year. And you think that's an effective oversight. Because one of the key functions of Parliament is that of oversight, in which we're able to look at what ministries, agencies do, and how we checkmate what they do. But when you look at the allocation to Parliament in the area of oversight, you understand why the oversight functioning of Parliament is very, very weak. Because as a leader, I will tell you, we only give oversight to MPs to go for 4 days, most times 6 days. Think about somebody who oversights the local government ministry, for example. By the time you're able to go through all the councils across the country to see physically what they're doing with their own source revenue, how they generate that, that could not be done in 6 days. So that's a huge challenge for us as members of Parliament. Again, when you look at the area of oversight, it doesn't just mean going on physical trips, but it also means the one-on-one engagement with ministries. I want to say Parliament has done great work in that, and to the point, the minister will tell you he has been called to Parliament many times, and fortunately, he's been his ministry is under the opposition. The chairman of his ministries was Dr. Umfa up to last year. Now he's, yes, Rosa Mary Bangura. So you see, we've been checkmating government, but when it comes to allocations, we don't determine what is allocated to ministries as government, as Parliament. And most times when people even say, oh, Parliament have the power of the purse, we have +5, -5 powers. That's how I call it. The budget is being prepared by the Ministry of Finance, sent to Parliament. If you have an issue with the budget, you can ask for an addendum of 5% or a reduction of 5%. This in itself will not make any significant change to the budgetary allocations.
Honorable AKK,
Yes.
let's still with the MCC scorecard. Out of the 20 indicators, I mean, we're
22 indicators.
Sorry?
22 indicators.
22 indicators. We're yet to be able to achieve 9. And 13, right? Okay, thanks for that correction. And amongst some of the things that we've been able to achieve, at which we are 74% is the control of corruption. Does the opposition accept that progress, or do you believe the picture is different from reality?
No child wants the mother to be called a witch.
And
For
what
me,
does that explain?
Whatever indicator we pass as a country, I celebrate. I must say this. I may have my reservations to the fight against corruption, because what used to be the textbooks of the Anti-Corruption Commission has today been ignored. And year in, year out, we see the numbers rising in allegations of corruptions, allegations of
was the textbook not shared to the ruling party? You mentioned, what was this textbook?
Okay. The textbook of the ACC then, in the early days of Ben Kalfala in office, and the COI was the audit reports. Today, we see there's almost worse findings in those reports, and all what we see is not the much use of force to enforce the recommendations of the audit report. Again, as a nation, whether we pass indicators or not, the citizens have a way to rate us as leaders. The fight against corruption is one that has not yield internal acceptance, because we've seen for the very first time, I always say this, when it comes to allegations of corruption, even in my own office in Parliament, we've seen institutional review as the new mechanism rather than implementing the law. An institutional review, except if we're going to review the ACC Act, has not been a major part of the ACC's job. What we ask them to do is to prosecute. But what we see them doing now is institutional review. Even in situations, for example, when you go to the report, it tells us, and that is one area I am so concerned, and I hope Chair Nuba and the rest of the cabinet will be worried about this, is in the area of health, when it talks about our current health condition. And if you read the audit report I continuously using the audit report because this is a local report and this is a government-owned report. I will not use BAN. I will not use other institutions. I'm using the government institution. When you look at the reports from 2020 to date, you see huge challenges in the sector, in the health sector, that when you read when you go to the MCC report, though we've not failed, but you understand the fact that what is in that report reflects what is in the local government report, that when both of them are being merged, you understand why where we find ourselves. Say, for example, you go to the provinces. They're still telling us that we have health hospital, PHU, CHEs, where we don't have more qualified people. You go to certain areas, you only meet one qualified person. You go to certain areas, all the people working in the sector, you only have one approved, all are volunteers. You go to the ambulance systems. What do you have in the ambulance system? Most areas, out of the 140, if you read the recent audit report is telling us, only about 100 are functional. Out of the 100, 65 do not have simple oxygen in. So if you're taking it from Kenema to Freetown, you are the mercy of God to come all this way, because there is nothing medical in those ambulances.
But Honorable, one we want to argue again on the counter that most of the indicators you're mentioning or the examples you're giving weren't even better under the All People's Congress Party. I mean, Mr. Minister keeps mentioning 2017 as an example. If you look at that report, Sierra Leone recorded records on that MCC shows that Sierra Leone performed poorly across all the 20 indicators. So what's the minister is saying there has been improvement since 2018. You are saying yes, there are improvements, but there are concerns. But even when there are concerns, those concerns were not addressed.
I wish you would have gone back to 2014. No, not 14. Go back to 2006 to 2018 and see. You watch the progress we made as a nation from where we started in 2006. And
so would you accord Mr. Minister
let me land, please. If you use 2017 as a benchmark for our performance with the MCC, then you're not being fair to the people of Sierra Leone, because before 2017 there were results, and all of those ones we passed the more than 50% threshold, and that is why we're able to qualify for the threshold itself. Before now we talk about, you see, this is where I laid the premises this morning, that the MCC did not start with compact. It started with, first of all, enrollment. As we speak, there are countries across the world that are not even enrolled into the MCC. We were enrolled way back in 2006, and in 2014 we had the first threshold cash that was sent in for implementation and every other thing. So it means we are moving as a nation, and we're moving at the right steps. But where I deliberately will continue to say, if we intend to politicize the conversation of the MCC, we're only making ourselves as politicians as vulnerable as a cat dwelling around the house of a mouse dwelling around the house of a cat. The truth is, the current indicators, I wish you had invited me to come and discuss an APC SLPP conversation, then I would have come prepared to be more political. But what I want to say here this morning is the fact that we have indicators that we've not passed. We've not passed those indicators, not because we are not making progress as a nation in the MCC from where we started, but because some of these issues, challenges we have, we need to look at internally. You know, the MCC is not rating us based on all the areas the new areas that have been introduced. They were clear. They have no data on it. The areas we are being rated is, with the areas we've continued to pass in all these years, we've been passing some of those areas. But even when we pass them, our role as opposition is to say, hey, yes, we have a pass mark in education allocation, but the money's been allocated. Are they going on time? There is a willingness of government to spend more in the area of health. But what is the actual reflections in the area of health? Are the ambulance working? Have we had more we have health workers in those remote areas? Because even when we talk about employing teachers, employing nurses, again, it boils down to us knowing the percentage of who are on payroll, who are qualified teachers, who are not qualified teachers at different cadres of our system. When we do that, and we sit in these national platforms and we talk on issues like that, then we're being patriotic. But if the question asked is always, what has APC done? What has SLPP not done? Then we are not helping ourselves either as journalists or as spokespersons of political parties. I think we must cut we must reach a level where we cut and say, can we discuss where we are and where we're going? Where we're going. What are the challenges ahead of us? We've not done well in the area of the health when it comes to children. What do we need to do more? Is it a time for us to have more nurses being trained, given PIN codes and allocated to the rural area? Is it a time to reimburse the free health care that is today almost dying out? Is it a time to ensure we monitor the medicines that are being sent to those remote communities? What happens to them? So these are the things I think we need to be discussing. But if we want to move the discussion to being what SLPP has failed and what APC did not pass in 2017, then we will not be doing justice to our nation.
Okay,
I think it is time, as young people, all of us here, nobody's above 50, we look at our nation and we want to see what nation works for us when we get retired. If we start having a conversation like that, then we'll not have a situation where the minister will get angry or
I'm sure he's not angry. Most definitely.
The minister is passionate.
Very passionate.
I'm never angry.
So let's come back to the minister. I mean, we've had the Minister of Health, Mr. Dembi, here, and we've spoken quite extensively about the progress and some of the challenges within the health sector. But Honorable Minister, how will the government address the low child health score within the next 12 months?
I like that question because I think it's a good challenge for us as a government, and I want to associate with some of the sentiment that we need to think about these things from a civic perspective for all of us as a country. That's something that we agree on. We are the singular best performing country on the metrics of maternal health in the world. We've been awarded for that. So you want to talk about progress on healthcare? We have had a significant reduction in the number of women who die giving birth to life in this country. We did that through some really inventive thinking. And I think the Minister of Health has spoken about this, right? What we did was we made sure that we recorded every single pregnancy. We tracked it. We used an app, innovation, right? We were able to also account for and investigate every single death. So if the woman died, right, what the governments tried to do was to investigate each death. And that has led to about a 75% reduction in maternal mortality. We've been awarded around the world for that. We've been praised for that. Now here's what we're going to do on child health. President Bill has given instructions, and I know the Minister of Health has embarked on this and is working with the Deputy Minister of Health too on a very special child health program to use the exact same thing that we did to reduce maternal mortality to apply it to child health. We're going to record every child that goes into the hospital, and that's why we're expanding the child health infrastructure. For the first time, we have specialized pediatric hospitals. You know, now in Lumley, we're building as well across the country. I think everybody knows, and I've been praising the Minister of Health for some of the work that he's done. We just built a state-of-the-art hospital in Connaught. This was unheard of in this country.
And also the digital app that's...
Exactly, yes, that I just mentioned that's been used, right? So we are expanding the healthcare infrastructure across the country, but that's not going to be enough. We need to have that same consistency that we approach to maternal health. If Pekin die, we should investigate why he died, which are the causes, and what can we do to prevent the next one from dying. And then we increase on quality healthcare in the country. Under President Bio's tenures, we've hired thousands of new additional health workers. You know, people sometimes talk about, oh, the payroll, I don't call that. No, the payroll, say we get too many workers, government workers. Huh? Part of the reason is President Bio has hired a number of essential workers to help build a human capital infrastructure in the country. So you take education, for example. We have hired thousands of teachers across the board. But healthcare is a huge area. We've hired new doctors, new nurses, and these are empirical facts that we've done. Now, we're rolling out a child health initiative, which I believe within the next 2 to 3 years, we will begin to see that significant reduction because we have the experience. It's the same thing we did, for example, when you think about what we did with Ebola and we moved to COVID. If you have the experience, you've built the infrastructure, you apply the same principles, we're going to apply those similar principles, and we acknowledge that any child that dies in this country is unacceptable, it's significant, it's a blot on all of our collective consciences. It's something that is not political, it's something that we should all work towards solving, and that is exactly why we're not approaching this with politics. We're saying there's the evidence, there's the data, and as a country, it is one area where we have actually made progress in the past on maternal mortality. We're going to apply the same principles, we're going to adjust it based on what the data says, and we're going to implement it to make sure that we reduce the numbers here as well.
Please permit me to ask, I mean, just as a way to help, you know, Sierra Leoneans understand and to clarify some certain things. Where are we currently, since we're talking about health, where are we in the fight against drug abuse?
Oh, Kush, you mean?
Yeah.
So this is a significant problem. It is something that I have spoken about as well here. It is not a political issue. President Bio has declared it a national emergency. We have decided as a country that we're going to double down on this. Just this past weekend, my colleague, the Minister of Social Welfare, just showed that there's been new intake, for example, in the rehabilitation centers that have been opened across the country. We now have rehabilitation centers in every region across the country. We're seeing an uptake. We're seeing raids. President Bio has set up a special security unit that includes security forces from all the different forces that we have. They have increased the number of raids. We're seeing the containers now that are being, you know, tracked, and we're seeing major arrests being made. Our airports, you know, what we need to do on drugs is you need to elevate the national consciousness. You will see us putting more billboards across the country. We're doing more community engagement. So you have to take care of the prevention side. You and I have a role. These things happen in our communities, but you also have to deal with the supply. Where is it coming from? We've said many times that Kush is not made in Sierra Leone. Kush is imported. It's coming from the UK, it's coming from the Netherlands, it's coming from China. That's what the empirical study says. So that means we have to deal with the supply routes. We have to think about the porosity of our borders and how we deal with that. It has to be a law enforcement issue. Law enforcement not against the victims who take it in the streets and are dying. Those are victims. We cannot just go arrest them all and put them in jail. We should rehabilitate them. Who we should be targeting are the people that are bringing it, the people that are cooking it, the people that are supplying. And as you've seen, number of raids have increased, number of arrests have increased. In fact, the Chief Justice gave instructions to the judges based on the law that only the maximum applicable sentence will be imposed. And now we're seeing 10-year, 20-year, 30-year sentences that are being imposed. So it's an all of the above mechanism. Government has increased resource allocation to this. Ministry of Finance has said that they will set aside a number of resources that are being given to maintain the rehabilitation centers, because ultimately it's about saving the young people who are already victims of this, who are addicted to this. And so on this fight, I think I can only reiterate what President Bio has said, which is, do we all work together for end this Kush crisis?
Would you also want to clarify to the people of Sierra Leone, because there's this misinformation about, you know, a container from Sierra Leone that was seized in Nigeria?
This is an important issue, because I think the Sierra Leone Port and Harbour Authority have made clear in a very detailed press release, and I've been involved in this issue because I saw the news. So it's easy for people to you know, spread misinformation. On the container issue, when a container leaves a country, we'll do a scan, they check what's in the container. This container was handled by a company called Grimaldi. When the container left Sierra Leone, it left Sierra Leone completely empty. They checked it. The weight was consistent with what an empty container weight is. It went to Nigeria. When it docked in Nigeria, they checked it. The weight was consistent. It was empty. And it stayed in Nigeria for days and days, I think about 16 days. And then later they checked and they said, oh, they see cocaine. And they said, oh, but this container is Sierra Leone. And then the headline is container from Sierra Leone. No. That container, when it left Sierra Leone, every indicator, every international indicator, every measure that they did not have cocaine in that container. I'm not saying that, oh, it's not possible, that there are people who are capable of doing that. But on this particular issue, the country, the leadership of the Port and Harbour Authority have been clear. We've been very forthcoming. We've provided this information to everybody who's asked. And I think they've even invited some journalists to go there and see all the information, the right information. We've been very clear on this issue. This is just a case of unfortunate misinformation.
Mr. Minister, lastly, before I come to Honorable, are we settled on the civic education date?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for asking. I don't forget safe.
Are we settled on the date?
By the way, I want to extend an invitation to my brother. We'll send an invitation to Parliament, of course, but he's also an overseer. But this is a joke that we'll not go into the details on. I'm one of the disciples in that ministry. But the civic festival will happen from December 11th to December 13th. This year it's an international festival. We're having people coming from all over the world. Our guest speaker on the first day is somebody who served with Nelson Mandela in the ANC freedom movement. He's going to be the guest speaker. On the second day, our guest speaker is the president of the Population and Family Program of the Columbia University. He's a guy from Vietnam. It's a huge event. On the third day, we'll have a music closeout, which will end by 10:30. And then those of us who are also fans and brothers of Caldinero will take the bus and the vehicles that we'll provide and the ticket that we'll provide to fans to go all the way to River Number 2 to join him as well in the show. The problem in this country is people have what I call binary thinking, and people just lack for low make plaba. They want for tear between we, they want for make drama. You know, I have a meeting, I reach out to all the ones that are ambassadors that President Bio appointed, I've invited them. And by the way, our dates are exactly the same as the dates we used last year, with the conclusion that we announced last year. that we'll add one more date. So it was 11-12. This year it's 11-12-13. We announced it last year. We had a team retreat in January where we sealed that. You know, I'm happy that my brother and I, Carl, we sat down. I showed him all the evidence, and he said, I see misinformation. But that's why, in my role, I just learned to be calm and to stick to the fact, because the fact will always win out.
All right, and thank you very much, Mr. Minister. Honorable, quickly, before we leave you, if you're to look at the single reform that you will challenge this government to implement with full bipartisan support, what will it be leading into the next fiscal year?
That is very important, but let me talk on this issue of
In a few minutes.
I know it maybe takes 1 minute.
Go ahead.
You know, I've heard people saying, oh, government has employed more teachers, and that is why the payroll is going up. If you can fact check me on this, by 2017, we have almost 29,000 teachers on the payroll. And from 2017 to date, we only have currently a number of 34,000 teachers on the payroll. Meaning, give and take, whatever addition you do, it's about 6,000 teachers being added. That is not responsible for the bloated wage bill we have. You talk about nurses, you check just do the mathematics, you find out that we've not employed more than 7,000 nurses. But let me help the minister to understand this, and this is what we say sometimes. We call on them to be continuously looking at our debates, and when we bring out issues, let them look at them from a nationalistic perspective. Today I'm being very nationalistic here. One, if you employ somebody in an office where the person before him was paid 4,000 and now you're paying the person 40,000 millions, it means the wage bill is going to go up. With the number of government workers now has not increased to more than even 30% of what used to work in 2017. But what has happened is they've doubled salaries of certain people, cronies who are very close to certain people, have given them employment, and they've brought in more, how do they call them? They have this term they call them. Everybody now is a specialist being employed. Is not in the government payroll, but they call them. They have a name for them. They've given them. I wish I could remember that. And this is all over the place. And this is why we have a huge wage bill. It's so, I beg to differ with the minister on this. And it's not the poor teachers and nurses that are being employed in just small numbers. Realistic. In the area of the question you asked, in the area of health, and education. What he has said today is he has not talked about the major issues affecting the health sector. The availability of drugs in the hospitals, the availability of equipment in those hospitals, the availability of the clinics themselves in those remote areas. I saw a video recently, which I know he has seen, of a woman being carried on armor in Kwanabibu district. Those are the issues we talk about. And when you look at government's programs in the area of health or education, you don't see anything that talks about infrastructural development. When you talk about even the Malabio Hospital of Excellence, I challenged the Minister of Health the other day that even that hospital currently do not have water facility running in. So it's not just the facilities. They also have to do with having what? Timely disbursement of funds, government having major programs in terms of infrastructure, employing the right people, having nurses and health workers going into those remote areas. If we're going to run an ambulance system, the ambulance we have now have run more than 10 years. It means even the ministers do not use their vehicles for more than 5 years. They bought them new vehicles. It's high time we buy new ambulances for the nations. This issue that affects the ordinary people must be taken seriously. To education, I will say it's simple. It was the Minister of Education, was it Timbo, that said we should remove all people, because normally when we are being elected, we're almost in all the school boards in our community. With this, we're able to monitor direct impact of government implementation in the education sector. That policy was removed, and interestingly, those we defeated in elections were now appointed as board members in those schools. You're saying you want to depolitize the boards by getting out elected members, but you appointed people who lost elections into the same boards. So I don't know what depoliticizing meant by him then. But I am saying, in the area of education,
The moment we start looking at education as a tool for the development of this nation beyond politics, the better we're able to solve those problems. I have said this morning, I don't celebrate when they lose, because where we are now, whether they perform worse or they don't pass indicators, they live in power in 2028. So we are looking at a situation where we help them at least to keep the base.
How sure are you about that statement?
The minister is really sure. He's more sure than I do. So we are saying we want to keep the base as a nation, in which we move towards a more progressive steps, in which we're able to look at them and say, hey, in the area of education, for example, I remember the last time we met, I told him they've not paid subsidies. He was sure they've paid. Later he came to realize they've not paid. Now we're saying, this is the first time. We're ending the first time by the 19th of
December.
And up to now, we've not paid the first time subsidies. So the question is, for remote schools who want to use learning materials, how do they get them? Because they depend on the subsidies to get learning materials. So from September when school reopened to December 19, we don't have subsidy. We must have a clear-cut policies when subsidies should be given. Because the subsidy, all of this is important for the how much, who do we employ? We cannot run a system in education where we have up to 40,000 out of the 60,000 just in the school, not on PE codes, and we expect quality. Again, I have challenged this. When they gave us statistics on education of kids in school, I have always said the numbers are not correct. Most times when we do census for schools, we take from the national census. Whether it was in 2015, we took the census of 2015 and to get the 2 million kids that are expected to be in school. This is the exact number, if you go back to statistics, of kids that were 1 year to 18 years. These are the kids expected to be in school. But in the school free quality education, you don't cater for kids who are in private schools. No, you don't. You don't cater for kids.
Honorable, apologies. I must stop you.
Because I was going to say,
we do not have.
I have the right
time
to respond to some of what he said, but he has said 50 things. So now I'm like,
but
I don't even know
apologies,
which one for
gentlemen.
response
Apologies again once more. I'm afraid we do not have enough time. But I'd like to say thank you, Honorable. And I will definitely have another time to discuss all this and more.
Not give parliamentary podium again. We talk no more.
Thank you very much, Honorable AKK, and of course to you, Mr. Minister, for gracing this program this morning. But let's take a quick word from our sponsor, and then when we come back, we continue with the second segment of the show.